Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is that you are joining us. Thank you so much for doing so. This is another episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal, where hopefully our show today is legend. Wait for it.
Dairy.
My name is Brian Chai. I'm the Deputy Managing Editor of Features here at the Western Journal. To my left, I have Joe Sedian. He is the Deputy Managing Editor of Editorial. And to my right, we have Associate Staff Editor Deborah Van Kempen. We have kind of a wide variety of topics to get to today, including some pretty scary stuff at the end. So please stick around. Deborah, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you first. We are officially 2 days into the Joe Biden presidency,
yes.
And I hear you have some thoughts.
Oh, already there's been so much going on. So it appears that Joe Biden and the establishment media have kind of formed a love-hate relationship. They love Biden. They were fawning all over him at the inauguration. There were all of these comments that were not very professional, just in terms of, oh my goodness, what a majestic moment for the country, you know, and things like that. But it's funny because he seems to hate them. He's gotten all of these ridiculous softball questions from the media ever since he started campaigning for president. And the one time, well, there's been a few times, but when he actually gets asked a serious question, he doesn't seem to know how to answer it. And so this actually happened just yesterday. When he was having a news conference with reporters, there was an AP reporter who asked him a question about his vaccine rollout plan, and he didn't really know what to say. So we have a tweet, if we can put it up on the screen, about this situation, and there's a video associated with it when Biden says what he does.
Mr. President, you set the goal at 100 million vaccines. Is that high enough? Shouldn't you set the bar higher? That's basically where the U.S. is right now.
When I announced it, you all said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man. It's a good start. 100 million. Thank you.
Come on, give me a break, man.
Famous words.
The famous words of Joe Biden. And so it's really funny because there were a few people on Twitter actually that made the great point that Trump, with his vaccine rollout plan, they were distributing about 990,000 vaccine dosages per day. And the Biden plan was to administer 1 million dosages per day, which is just a 10% difference. And so there were a few people that were asking Biden, is that high enough? And that was his response. And he's just had kind of a run-in with a few different people over the last few years with interviews and with reporters asking him questions. His famous cognitive test interview where he said, why the hell would I take a test? And just everything that happened with the Hunter Biden stuff and his kind of unwillingness to answer anything honestly about that. And so do you two think that the media is going to continue throwing softball questions at him now that there's a Democrat in office?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're going to, pretend to try. They'll go through the motions at some point. The thing is, Joe Biden's always been pretty bad with the media. I don't think it's, any malicious thing on his part. I think he's just a bad public speaker. He's
That's
always
fair.
had these gaffes. He's always kind of been weird on his feet when he gets asked a question he doesn't really know how to respond to. So that's Joe Biden. And
Yeah.
I think the media has sort of come to this this conclusion that, well, this is Joe Biden and that's fine. That's fine with us. At least he's not Trump. So yeah, that you'll probably see this for the next few years. It's not going to change.
Yeah, I probably disagree with you a little bit, Joe.
Okay.
I think it will probably get worse, worse in the sense that as Biden continues to struggle with the media, I think we will get softer and easier questions as time goes on.
Yeah.
I generally agree with your premise.
Yeah, no, I think that'll happen.
Yeah,
so.
especially as we start getting closer to 2022, 2024, I can definitely see, I don't know who runs against, or assuming Joe Biden runs for a second term, which I'm not 100% sure of, but depending on who is the Republican candidate come 2024, I can see a lot more softball questions kind of being lobbed their way because, let's face it, the media they didn't like anything that Republicans or Trump have done. The mainstream media, obviously, you do have more conservative-leaning outlets. They just don't want to go through that again. I think I will add the caveat that I'm going to be very curious to see the ratings of places like CNN, MSNBC, who they made their living the last 4 years just bashing Trump.
Right.
So I do wonder that is the one potential for maybe they do antagonize Biden a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So if he does get these harder questions thrown at him, which I don't think the vaccine rollout question is that hard of a question, but apparently it was. But if he does get more of these actual questions that are getting thrown his way, do we think that he's going to have to step it up eventually?
I mean, yeah, but like Joe mentioned, I don't think he's capable of it. At this point, Joe Biden is a 78-year-old man. He is who he is. Even in his prime, he wasn't exactly quick-tongued, I guess, for lack of a better term, when it comes to dealing with the media. I can't see that getting better as he gets into his 80s. No disrespect to anyone watching this who's an octogenarian.
I think that Joe Biden has been able to use his lack of being able to speak or answer questions into something of a strength, at least in the public view, because he's so known for being terrible at responding to questions and just not being a good campaigner, just not being very good in front of the camera, and not being a natural speaker, a natural statesman when it comes to that sort of stuff, that it's so easy to just throw it off as, oh, well, that's just Joe Biden. He's never been good at that. So, I mean, he just has a kind of a ready-made excuse. That's just the way I am. I've always been that way, and it's not because I'm in my 70s or almost 80. It's just the way that Biden is, and people are, the media at least, is going to accept that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Especially when you see the way that they treated Trump, where it was
the way they've treated every Republican. I mean,
that's very true.
Predating Trump, Trump especially more so, but they hated Bush, they hated the other Bush, they hated Reagan, they hated McCain. They pretend that they liked Bush and McCain and the elder Bush. Now they pretend like these were great statesmen, but they were terrible to them as well when they were president, or when they were running for president. They called McCain a racist, and now they pretend like they loved him, and they never did. It's just all a dishonest grift.
Yeah, honestly. And Biden has just been having a rough week already in general. I mean, with his approval ratings, what they're looking like right now in comparison to what Obama's and Trump's were, and with all of the National Guard stuff that we've seen. Joe, you wanted to talk about that, actually.
Well, actually, Joe Biden was forced to apologize today because there was a big hoopla, and rightfully so, because remember how 25,000 National Guard troops, after the Capitol riots, they were sent to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration to protect Joe Biden and to protect the day's events, to protect the peaceful transfer of power, basically. And then some photos came out last night, and some soldiers basically came out anonymously and said, hey, we were told you can't sleep in the Capitol anymore because they've been protecting the Capitol. You got to sleep in a parking garage. And so the thing to understand is that when National Guard troops are assigned to the Capitol, like they were recently, like they were in recent days, they have hotels, right? But their hotels are in Virginia and Maryland, and it's kind of the suburbs of DC. So if they're working a 2-day-long shift, they're going to have to take a nap somewhere. And instead of taking a nap in the Capitol building, now they had to do it in a parking garage with nothing's. It's not a great place to be. COVID is just running rampant there, no doubt. I mean, it's not safe. One soldier went off the record, and not off the record, but anonymously, he spoke to Benny Johnson, who's with, I think, Turning Point USA, and he said, yesterday, dozens of senators and congressmen walked down our lines taking photos, shaking our heads, and thanking us for our service. Within 24 hours, they had no further use for us and banished us to the corner of a parking garage. We feel incredibly betrayed. Now we're going to play a video on the screen very quickly. It's only about 10 seconds long, just showing kind of the conditions that these National Guards men and women were faced with. So there you have it. I don't think that it is a really good look for the establishment or for really anyone involved in this. Now, to be fair, there's been a lot of blame shifting going around, and we don't know whose fault this was exactly. Who made the call that said, no, you got to go into the parking garage and you got to be there? We don't know. What I do think this shows is that having the National Guard, having this huge show of force in D.C. for Biden's inauguration, it was all just virtue signaling. It was all just
Yeah.
a show to basically, say, look, we're doing something. We're protecting the chosen president. And probably nothing was going to happen. Nothing big anyway. The FBI was investigating. A lot of people were investigating. Nothing huge was going to happen. And then they just kind of cast them to the side when they were no longer needed
Once
for
their
show.
purpose had been fulfilled.
So the point I'm trying to make is it was all for show.
Yeah.
And that's kind of annoying to me. Just that, our politicians and I don't know whose fault this was, but just
Yeah.
that the establishment in DC will use servicemen and women for themselves, for their own benefit, and then just disregard them when they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's really sad, just the kind of level of disrespect that we've seen over the past few years in terms of service members, with policemen, with troops, with all of these people groups that used to be such a symbol of hope and respect in America, and now it just seems like they are used for photo ops, and that's about it.
By everyone.
Yeah.
Politicians just use soldiers for photo ops. Even when, I think it's nice when politicians will go to Iraq or Afghanistan and take photos with the troops. They're not doing that for the troops. They're doing that for themselves. So they can have a photo op so that when they run for president, or if they are already the president, they can just have a picture
Look,
of them
I support
with
our
the troops in a war zone. What are your thoughts,
definitely.
Brian?
Yeah, it does. It just makes me kind of sad. Like these people who they're being treated as props.
Right.
Like,
That's a good word. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's literally what you do, around your house. It's Halloween, once Christmas passes, you just throw the Christmas tree and ornaments back in the garage, which is how it feels like with that.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's sad. I do agree with you that it's probably a little too early to pin blame
Certainly,
on any
yeah.
single entity. Obviously, you're going to see, you'll see a lot of people blaming Joe Biden for this, which, we can't speak on his culpability.
No, it could have been a bureaucratic thing.
Yeah.
Just some, bureaucrat somewhere said, hey, we'll just throw them here. And we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's sad to see. I really wish that is one of the things. And to be fair, it's not just politicians. You see this everywhere, whether it's celebrities or professional athletes, actors, actresses, all that stuff. These are photo ops. This is all optics. They want to seem like they are supporting the troops, supporting our men and women in service. And to be fair, I do think some of those people in those pictures, they genuinely do care. I think that goes without saying. But yesterday's example was a particularly egregious one of just people not caring. These are human beings, people who are taking, and like you said, who knows how much danger there actually was surrounding the inauguration. Right. At the very least, they were still out there doing their jobs,
Exactly.
Supporting their country.
Doing what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. And they were cast aside like last year's Christmas props.
Yeah, I should be very clear. I'm not blaming the National Guard's troops at all for any of this. They were these men and women are heroes.
Yeah.
They do what they're told, and they serve whenever the country calls them to do so. I think it's the people in charge of them that just don't care about them. Were you going to say something, Deborah?
Yeah, I was just going to say the good thing that we have seen from this is that after everyone found out that they were sleeping in that parking garage, it seems like there has been largely bipartisan efforts to kind of make amends for that, with giving them a tour of the Capitol and with senators reaching out and things like that.
Yeah, that was actually one of the more uplifting parts of kind of this whole debacle, was that you saw everyone from AOC who said, you can come up to my office if you want and sleep there, to Matt Gaetz, who was giving pizza, I think. I'd have to check on that. But all these kind of Republicans and Democrats, no one was like, well, who cares? This is bad. Everyone, this caused enough of an uproar that people, said, we can't have this. This isn't how we treat our troops in the United States. Do you think that's all for show too, or do you think they actually care?
I think the optimistic part of me would like to hope that the majority of it is true, that the majority of it is completely genuine, and that they're like, oh, this was a really bad look for America. This is not how we support our troops. This is not what we think of the men and women that serve our nation. We need to do something to fix this. But I do honestly kind of see a few people that could be using this as a way to just kind of garner more support.
Yeah. I know you guys, anyone watching, you probably can't tell, but I am the oldest person on this panel today.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
You know, the grumpy old cynic in me kind of does lean towards, you know, your second thought there, that I do think, you know, especially when you look at some of the stuff like AOC taking aim, I guess, for lack of a better, taking, you know, going after ICE. You know, these are people who serve and protect. They are there to make America a better and safer place. And then you see the way she goes after them. And I think I'm not going to say it was completely disingenuous when AOC offered her office to the National Guard. But I absolutely think that there is some showmanship involved with it.
I think with everything in politics, you know, and I guess I've just become a cynic too, that it's hard for me to see anything that any politician or anyone in government does and not just think there's ulterior motives behind it. Because our government still, it's not saying anything new, but it's just so ingrained with people who only care about themselves.
Yeah.
It really is just swampy and murky and
Well, that's who a lot of politicians are.
Yeah.
They're there because they want to make their own mark on the world, and they just want to do whatever they can.
They want the fame, and they want
Yeah.
the people to look up to them and call them senator or congressman, and they want people answering to them. And it sounds nice. I mean, it's, you know, you can see the allure of it, but you're supposed to serve, and you know, these people aren't serving.
So we can count on you, Joe, one day when you run for senator, that you will not be part of the swamp. You will be, you will serve
by some
your community.
Very tiny chance anyone ever would elect me to anything, then sure, I would do that.
I would vote for you, Joe.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I probably wouldn't.
See? Yeah, I got one vote. And my mom would vote for me too, probably.
There you go. There's two.
You sure?
No. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit.
From one sad bit of news about Joe's mom not
something
voting
even
for him,
sadder.
to something much sadder, actually. So the topic I wanted to bring, you know, we've heard a lot about politics and Joe Biden and all this stuff all week. A slightly different story caught my eye today. It involves Microsoft being granted a patent that would allow the company to make chatbots using personal information of deceased people. It is very much like an episode out of Black Mirror, where
It's a copy of the episode.
yeah,
of Black
it
Mirror.
is exactly. But it's kind of scary to think about. So I'll just read this a little bit. The patent describes creating a bot based on the quote images, voice data, social media posts, electronic messages, end quote, and more personal information. The specific person who the chatbot represents may correspond to a past or present entity or a version thereof, such as a friend, relative, an acquaintance, a celebrity, a fictional character, a historical figure, a random entity, etc. It goes on to say. It's not just chatting with them. This technology also includes 2D or 3D models of specific people that can be generated through images and video data. And it also allows it allows the user to basically program one of themselves. So, you know, if I wanted Joe to speak to me years after I passed away, I could theoretically use this Microsoft program to put my, you know, all that information in, so Joe can speak to a virtual version of me, which I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
well, I appreciate
when the
that.
Giants beat the Patriots,
Oh, here we go.
50 years from now,
Oh my goodness.
I will want to brag
There
about
Joe
it.
will be.
Yeah, there he will be. So, and this obviously isn't anything new. We've seen this type of technology before. I think the reason this story kind of caught my eye is because Microsoft is such a prolific company. This isn't some niche tech company. This is Microsoft. Arguably, you know, Microsoft and Apple are probably the two biggest tech companies in the world.
And Google.
And Google, yes. So
And Facebook.
Actually, I'm sure Facebook
Twitter.
will play
And
some
Amazon.
role. Facebook and Twitter, I'm sure, will play some role in this technology. So, Deborah, I'll ask you first.
Yeah.
Does any of this seem like a good idea? And would you ever personally use that kind of technology?
Oh, it seems like a great idea. I absolutely would. No, I'm kidding, of course. This honestly just seems like something out of a modern day dystopian novel. where people are able to go into this big metallic dome and log into their computers when there's thousands in a row and talk to their dead loved ones. It's so bizarre. I would absolutely not ever use it personally. I don't know about you, Joe, but
Well, okay. Yes and no. So first off, I think this is weird and creepy in many cases. But I've been to Philadelphia, right? And I remember when I was a kid, there was this little 3D thing of Benjamin Franklin, right? And it was giving you a history tour. And I can see sort of a use for it like that. If you insert a lot of information about some historical figure, right? Let's say Abraham Lincoln or something like that, you can actually be used for educational purposes. And I think that's really cool. I would definitely use it, to talk to fake, George Washington or Thomas Jefferson. That's cool. That being said, I think where it gets creepy and weird and where I wouldn't use it is where you're trying to bring back loved ones. And here's the reason why. When your loved ones pass away, it's very important that you mourn them and love them, but you have to move on eventually because you can't be stuck in the past. And I guess that part of it for me is where kind of the worldliness, fear of death comes into it. And that's where we have to realize, look, as Christians, we're not afraid of death. We know that the end has already been written, right? Jesus already defeated death. And if we believe in him, we're going to be saved. So we don't have to be worried about, I'm not going to see my loved ones again, so I have to talk to them in some weird fake way now. Because you know that you will see your loved ones. You can see your loved ones again.
We don't have to cling on to that last little bit of them that we might have.
It's this secular fear of death that is provoking this, I think, because you're so afraid of not having any remnant left.
I do. I pretty much agree with you completely, Joe. I do think, I would never, and I'm sure you agree with me, you would never tell someone how to grieve. Like that is, that is for them to cope and manage. You would never tell someone how to grieve. But that being said, part of grieving, like you said, is moving on.
Right.
And, especially.
Eventually.
Yeah. And like you said, it involves, if you're a person of faith, then maybe it's a little easier. But for people who are not, believers, they need to move on. They need to understand that, life does move on. As sad as it is, as much as some people just don't want to hear that is a part of life. And Joe, you already kind of touched on it. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on what do you think this type of technology says about society today, the modern world in 2020, and what is this idea of being able to speak with deceased loved ones? I guess in theory, forever, for the rest of your life, you could use this technology. What do you think that says about society?
Well, having watched many Doctor Who episodes about
here we go.
No, I think it says that society's tech obsessed. We're obsessed with things, right? With the material and the stuff that you can touch. And we're not obsessed enough with the spiritual and the things that are beyond, the physical world. So like I said before, we have the fear of the unknown, right? Everyone is afraid of death because no living person knows what it's like to be dead. So it's scary. And it is just kind of feeding into this. Everyone at their heart in this society is afraid of death. That's why, it's just the thing we're most afraid of.
We have an instinct for survival.
We have an instinct for survival, and we want to live. So we're like, how can we live beyond our deaths? And as I said before, Christians have an answer for how we can live beyond our deaths. And what this says is that people are looking for anything. They want an answer so bad. They want something that will outlive them when they're gone, that they'll resort to, cheap, even though it's not cheap, but essentially it is a cheap copy of life.
Yeah, it's just, I think as a society, we've kind of started to value things that are irreverent in a sense, and I think that this might be one of those things where death isn't something that I think should be glorified. And I'm not saying that that's what this is doing, but in
a way, it almost is.
In a way, yeah. But I think that the concept of being able to bring back a loved one from the dead. I mean, like Joe was saying, it kind of seems like we're moving towards this place where we're just so obsessed with technology. And I don't know if either of you saw the new Wonder Woman movie, but the fact that she was with this guy who wasn't even her boyfriend and was in some other guy's body. Oh, I'm so sorry. Late spoiler alert. But it was very strange, and it makes you wonder, like, are there boundaries concerning this? What are the boundaries, you know? And I feel like those are kind of implications that they might have to work through before they try to put this technology out there.
Yeah, and I mean, even aside from the sort of ethical implications of this, there is always the, you know, the the technological side where this feels rife for abuse. Like, if someone is truly grieving and coping and speaking to, you know, maybe it's a deceased wife or a husband, like someone they love and they lost way too soon, you know, there are bad people out there. If a bad person is able to get someone's ex-husband to tell her to do bad things, you know, by hacking this, like this technology just seems like a Pandora's box that, on an ethical level, like we've already discussed, just seems like a bad idea. When you look at the technological level, it seems like an even worse idea, just something that can be abused, honestly. And we actually have sort of seen some of this. The most prominent example recently is October 2020. Kanye West bought Kim Kardashian West, although I think they're they might be in the middle of divorce. Okay, yeah. Well, his then wife, a hologram of her late father, and Kim's father spoke to her, which is really weird. But it's also, you know, and she seemed to like it.
Is he the guy who defended OJ?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of a bonus question. If someone got you a gift of a hologram,
oh no,
would you be appreciative or would it creep you out more?
I think the gesture is sweet, and I can understand where he was coming from, just in the sense that it's nice to have that little piece of your loved one with you, and it's nice to hear their voice in a sense, you know. But I think personally, if somebody gave me a hologram or if somebody gave me this kind of technology, I would be a little weirded out by it, because I know in my heart, and this goes back to whether or not you believe in Jesus, whether or not you're saved, I know in my heart that I'm going to be able to see that person again one day if they're a Christ follower. And so that part for me is a lot more valuable than seeing a glimpse of them in a hologram.
What about you, Joe? Would that ever make a good gift for you?
It would make a good gift for me if it was, again, some historical figure that I've always wanted to meet.
Maybe Eli Manning.
You know, Eli Manning's very much alive. He would never talk to me, but he's very much alive and well. But yeah, if it was someone like that, that would be cool. I agree with Deborah. I wouldn't want, you know, anyone who's close to me or anyone who I, you know, had an emotional connection to. Like that, I think that would be weird. What about you?
That makes you know, it's tough. Has it already been a year? Wow, it has. It's been about a year since I lost my grandmother, who I was very close with. She helped raise me. And I'm not going to lie, in that moment, I might have unhealthily clung onto some sort of hologram of her. You know, because I think with any time someone passes away, there's a natural inclination for humans to feel guilt, whether it's, man, I could have spent more time with her, I could have spoken more to her. Obviously, a year later, no, I'd want nothing to do with that. But yeah, you know, I believe it or not, I'm not perfect. So yeah, I know, shocking. So yeah, I don't think I would appreciate a gift like that today, but again, I can also see why someone would.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to say about this topic real quick was a passage given to us by our editor-in-chief, George Upper, who's actually supposed to be in my seat today, but he had a little bit of a tummy ache, so he couldn't make it in. It's Ecclesiastes 3:11, basically telling us that God has put eternity in the hearts of men, which, you know, when George gave that to me based on this topic, it did kind of strike a chord. It makes a lot of sense that what we've already talked about. If you believe, if you're saved, this type of stuff is just frivolous. You don't need any of this. Obviously, if you don't believe, then you're trying to fill that void with things other than Christ, in this case, technology. So I think that was a really wise thing from George, who is older than all of us put together.
Yes.
So
wait, really?
No, not really. So yeah, with that sobering thought, we have just about run out of time today, guys. So I have last few things to just say. Just as a reminder, this has been WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. You can catch us every weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you are listening to us via audio, you can do us a huge favor. Go to youtube.com/WJ Live. Click the subscribe button. That way you can follow us, get all of our content. But also make sure to hit the bell.
Ding.
Ding.
Oh, two dings. That way you're notified anytime a new episode goes live. That would help us out a lot. If you're already following us and notified when we go live on YouTube, you can also do us a favor by going to however you prefer to listen to your audio podcasts, Apple, Spotify, what have you, and subscribe to us there as well. And while you're there, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a 5-star review, that would be much appreciated. And finally, you can support real journalism by going to westernjournal.com/join. That way you can contribute to us directly. It helps us write more stories, bring you more shows. It just helps us get the truth out there to all the people who need it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Cool. Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no. You and Joe. You
The
should
Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Got me to go to the studio. No!